us Dave Neiwert, the investigative journalist and staff writer over at Daily Kos. He's the author of Red Pill, Blue Pill, How to Counteract the Conspiracy Theories That Are Killing Us. DailyKOS.com is the website, and also dneiwert, Neiwert.blogspot.com. Twitter handle David Neiwert, Neiwert. And Dave, welcome back to the program. You've written a couple of pieces here that I find absolutely fascinating. In particular, this one about the Patriot Front members in Idaho who are basically blowing off the courts. Tell us about this.
Well, you know, we had the big arrests in June, on June 11th over at Coeur d'Alene, of the 31 Patriot Front marchers who showed up to try to raise hell at the Pride in the Park parade and or event that they've had for 30 years in Coeur d'Alene without any incidents. And, you know, they arrested these 31 guys out of the back end of a U-Haul. And they came from all over the country. And it's a worrisome case because they're right now only facing state charges, state-level charges from Coeur d'Alene city prosecutors. And what they did was actually was a federal offense, crossing state lines, to a conspiracy to riot while crossing state lines. And so I think a lot of folks are wondering, you know, why.
Is this Mayor Garland being reluctant to go after hardcore right-wingers?
I don't think this is Merrick Garland. I think this is actually the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boise or Coeur d'Alene.
Oh, so they've got some right-winger in that off? Or, I mean, is that is he a Biden appointee?
Well, I think, yeah, there could be very good reasons for not doing it if they felt they didn't have a solid case or a strong enough case. Then, as we've seen in many previous cases, including like the Bundys and Malheur, losing these cases in federal court has a really can have basically the catastrophic effect of actually encouraging and inflaming them. So it's possible that the U.S. Attorney's Office has chosen to try to offer as much support for the local prosecutors to try to get as stiff a sentences as they possibly can through Kootenai County Court process.
Yeah.
And you know, you do what you can to fight these guys. I'm reluctant to second guess it, but you know, I think that there is some very serious concern that these guys are, I mean, basically at every step of the way, they've felt empowered to do. They feel they're bulletproof, the Patriot Front guys. And none of them have actually faced any serious legal consequences for this, other than the prosecutions in Coeur d'Alene. And even that, they're just, you know, they only have to come in through Zoom. They may wind up just paying fines. Right. And doing probation.
Right. So, so from there, I'd like to move to this other piece that you wrote about powers. This is also in Daily Kos. Power substation attacks often fit into neo-fascist terrorism blueprint, but sometimes they don't. Here, you know, I live in Portland, and in our neighborhood, as it were, this part of the Pacific Northwest, we've had a number of these attacks on power facilities. Some of them appear to have been right-wing, inspired by right-wingers. And then you've got, you know, these guys who, this really rather pathetic case of this fellow who was, apparently his wife was 8 months pregnant and he was out of work and he didn't have money. And so they thought that if they shot up the substation, it would kill the local power. And then without power, he could break into a local store and steal money and their alarm system wouldn't be working. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, it's just kind of shows. I mean, that whole story. Of course, it's happened in Puyallup, which is south of Seattle, just sort of in the Tacoma area, and it's a little due east of Tacoma, and these two guys from Puyallup, they basically came up with this scheme of, committing burglaries with the power stations shut out. So they shut out 4 power stations, and got caught.
Yeah,
pretty easily. They weren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed, and so.
But they were imitating the right wingers. I mean, this is these right wingers setting the stage for this is probably the larger issue that we should be concerned with, isn't it? Yeah.
And that is that's actually the bigger issue, is that the right-wing extremists have been demonstrating, this ongoing interest in attacking the infrastructure in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
We had a group of neo-Nazis that was busted there's actually 2 Decembers ago, late December 2021, early 2022, who were these guys were planning to attack the power grid infrastructure to come over to Portland, actually, to commit assassinations of their political enemies. And that's, fortunately, the FBI was very proactive in that case and caught those guys before they ever did anything.
Right.
And they're now all doing federal prison time. But there are, but the thing is, there have been that was the case where they didn't actually attack stations. And what we have seen is that since June of this year, with an attack in the town of Morton, which is just outside, sort of up by in the Mount St. Helens area, where somebody shut out a power station, and we've seen we've had a whole string of attacks like this. One of them was at the Clackamas Dam power station, or one of the Clackamas substations, and throughout the Northwest, we've seen a string of them, and they tend apparently. The investigators aren't giving us details of what it is they're attacking, which pieces of equipment they're targeting. Although I think it's pretty fair to presume that the primary piece that they're targeting is just the transformers themselves, as we saw.
If they can drain out the coolant, then they melt down essentially.
And it brings the system down. But there are other pieces of equipment, and this is all being laid out for them in this manual that's being distributed among right-wing extremists, neo-Nazi accelerationist types, who we monitor on Telegram and in other places. Making their terrorism plans.
So they believe online. if they shut down enough power systems that the American people will say, okay, I guess the government can't provide us with power anymore, and so we're going to tear down the government. But more than half of the electricity in the United States is privatized to begin with. I mean, it certainly is here in the Pacific Northwest. Right. I don't understand the logic. Are these guys living in a bizarro world, or is there actually some strategy that they're trying to employ that has worked someplace else in the past?
No. Well, Tom, what we're just talking about here is really the generic motivation of all domestic terrorists, which is that their intention isn't necessarily that they hope that in their wildest dreams that they will spark the Great Race War or something like that. Mm-hmm. But their larger strategy is to hollow out society from within, to make people feel that the government no longer can protect them, no longer can provide them the security, no longer can keep the lights on. Right. And at that point you just push the system over and offer to replace it with an autocratic system run by plutocrats, which is what is actually looming over us right now.
Right.
Anyway,
we will make the trains run on time, as Mr. Mussolini used to
just
say.
do what Mr. Trump says, or what Mr. Musk says.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
Dave Neiwert, investigative journalist, staff writer at the Daily Kos, author of Red Pill, Blue Pill: How to Counteract the Conspiracy Theories That Are Killing Us, and dneiwert.blogspot.com. Dave, thanks so much for dropping by. It's always great talking with you.